Hello to episode 3 of Solo Satisfactory. This is a bit of a build update. I've been playing a fair bit of this game as usual, and I have a fair bit to show you. I was going to try and do an edited version of all this, but it just became too much. So we'll do a quick update, and then we'll sort of preview what the upcoming episodes are going to cover. So I have got some builds that I want to start progressing and working through. So first things, I have moved my central storage thing. I've now got this central hub, and it's got a whole bunch of storages inside of it, neat lighting inside of it. This has got everything I need to basically build practically everything. A few bits and pieces aren't here, but most of the main things are here. Got a workshop, crafting bench, and my teleporters. Awesome sink shop over here. Tell you my power checker, which is something that I've still got. Absolute bucket load of power, and on this side is not much has changed there. My power storage building and the main factory there. So the big change I made was as I was building up the generators. So let's just quick jump into the generator section. So this is basically up and running fully now. One thing you might notice is there's now a big long conveyor belt thing that goes all the way through to there. That changed the existing one I had. So if we just go down, we can see that it's actually this three row thing. So I've got a whole bunch of sulfur and limestone, coal, uranium, quartz crystal coming through there. Got more coal and iron ore under here. This did have along the top here the nitrogen gas, which is required for this first set of 4 blenders here. The first set of this row of blenders all require nitrogen gas. It was being trained to a train station sort of on the other side of there. We'll go there in a second. And then being piped to here. I found that it was really inefficient. The pipe was always very consistently not getting enough sort of throughput. So I basically changed it and made the train come all the way through here. And I've got this elaborate set of pipes to sort of feed from one end to the other into another. I need to feed these first too, in order to make sure there's enough throughput and pressure, etc., to keep these 4 always full of nitrogen, even when this train is unloading like it is now. So when the train unloads and loads, these things can no longer pump it, export out stuff. You can't even get into them to look at them. And that meant that this very far one was sometime running low on nitrogen. But it's always on top of things. So it's always running efficiency now. So this setup is now working really, really well. All these 4 are constantly going. I've got these running, these final plutonium fluorides running at essentially 100%, and the manual one is also doing pretty well, although the problem with the manual one is that I do run out of silica fairly frequently. I've got a fair bit of waste here. Got 11,000 left. That won't take long to exhaust. And I have a few of extra stuff in here that I've had occasionally where I've come into this section and find 1 or 2 of these production runs just completely not lined up properly, not completely backed up. In the latest save, I'll also notice I've actually realigned this particular part of the accelerator to be more in the same sort of layout than these other ones here. So straight out from here into this. I have already done that, so it's been done. So the spacing's a bit more consistent between the 4 of them now. So that's that big change here. As I said, this big long sort of storage conveyor belt bus line that I have created. I think you can actually get inside it, which is cool. So we've got iron ore coming in from over there, which is required to make the iron plates that are required for the first set of blenders. We've got limestone coming in from here. A lot of limestone is required because there's a lot of concrete requirement. And we've got more limestone coming in there. Yep. Just put it like this. The next video, just sort of thinking, it might actually be a bit of a look at update 6, because that is coming to experimental in a couple of days. Coffee Stone Studios announced that like a couple of days ago now, as we're recording, sort of 10th, 11th of June. I think they announced that the actual date for update 6 coming to experimental. They've also mentioned that it's going to be in experimental for a bit longer than normal, which is kind of probably going to be good for me, because that'll allow me to figure out what's changed, especially with the Spire Coast, which is this part of the map up here where this train station is. This part of the whole map here is known as Spire Coast, and that's been changed dramatically, including where the resource nodes are, etc, etc. So yeah, as a result of that, my massive factory I've got there that's built in plastic is going to have to be essentially moved. Until I know by how much, I'm not really dealt with it at the moment. Where I've got a lot of this stuff, this swamp area, that's also been redone, but not to the same extent as the Spire Coast is. I'm expecting that not to affect my factory that much that I've got there. But once we get into experimental, I'll get a sense of what that is, and that'll give me an idea of what I need to move out of the areas that I've got in order to, yeah, obviously get those factories, maintain those factories. Yeah, so I basically changed this entire belt system that sort of zigged out its way through here to be a straight run straight through there. So you've got the 3 return belts with iron, aluminium ingots, rubber and plastic, all going this way, all going down a conveyor belt lift into this section and going straight into the factory. It was, if you might recall from previous videos, it was very zigzag. It used to come along here and coming down in through here. I just basically changed it to be complete straight run through. So now we've got that coming in through there. We've got the previous train, or the current train station where the nitrogen was coming into. It's now just does uranium and sulfur, I think is what it's got now. There's a train going there. So this is just doing sulfur and uranium, and the nitrogen gas now comes through this little archway of belts. Through to the main factory down there. And I've also got some I've changed the belt work underneath here that brings in the iron, the coal, uranium and crystal from a section of the map that's way down to there. And I do plan to extend this platforming all the way through, but it's just on my to-do list down the track. This made this a lot neater to then feed into along this section to then join up with the run either down to the generator factory or generator area or back to the main factory. I still haven't actually finished the build on the generators. I still require to put all the internal cosmetic stuff in, but from a functional point of view it's done. And that's actually kind of what led me to my next build. Is I discovered that I had basically run out of iodine filters, which is what you require to keep the gas, the nuclear, the uranium waste, or the uranium in general, radiation waste away from you. I then needed to build, set up a factory line or production line to build those, and that required me to basically build gas filters, which is one of the main things. So over here is a drone port. Just there, just got to get up there. Hopefully I've got enough suit to get there. We do. So this drone port here is bringing in gas filters, which I'll go and show where that's built, where it's been made, because it comes into here combined with aluminium casing, which have been conveyor belt bust in from over over there. That's where they're being made, just in that factory machine right there. And then they bring it to here. They're combined with Quickwire, which is made up over here by these 12 stacked there. That's all Quickwire, and that comes into here, and we're making a 200% overclock 200% manufacturer, making 7.5 iodine infused filters a minute, which are then going into a storage unit, a storage container over there. So we'll just, hopefully got enough. So you can see we've got a full unit that, and the rest of them are just being sunk as normal. Oops, could have kept on line. So that the rest of it is just being sunk as more the standard way of doing things now that I do things now. To build those 7.5, the requirement of 7.5 gas filters a minute, I needed to go find a whole area to do that with, because gas filters require a certain number of things. You need to have coal, rubber, and fabric to make them. And then to make those, you need to have. Obviously, they need their own. They've got their own production to make those things. They're not naturally occurring, as you can imagine, except the coal is. So I then found a section that does exactly that. And if I get onto, we may even see the building I've created. Tell you what, let's go. Let's see how far we can go. You can see the building is just there. That's the building I built. You can see a drone just going into it now. So let's go teleport over there. Just come down this way. We'll go into the bottom level of it. I've got a teleport point at the bottom and at the top. This is where the game will take a massive frame rate hit, because the lights have a massive impact on frame rate. To show you what I mean, FPS. I'm in just in the right hand side there, in red there. I'll highlight it in the video. I'm barely getting 20 frames a second when all this lighting is turned on, and that looks really cool, and it looks really good at night. If we go set time, we set it to 23 o'clock, 11 PM at night. It does look really cool in here, but it does make a massive hit. And if we go outside, it does look kind of cool inside there, but the frame rate hit that it takes is just a bit too much. If I go and break, I think, that cable, nope. One of these will power all these lights, and I can actually sort of turn them off. There we go. And already the frame rate's already above 30 just by doing that alone. So yeah, it takes a massive frame rate hit when you do the lights. So this is a section of the map, just to give you a sense of where we are. We are now down here. The main hub is over here where we just were. There's the tower. Oh, actually no, way over. I've now lost track of where I am. No, that's why I've got the thing sent off. Hub. It's there. That's where the hub is. We're next to that big tower. So that is. So that's where we are. We've got oil over here. A couple of oil deposits over there. Let's land on this light. So we've got oil deposits over to there. Let's go and turn on back to daylight. That's a mod that allows me to do that, by the way. Yeah, so there's an oil over there. There's a couple of odd deposits over there which may get used in the future. Not too sure. There is a coal deposit over there. There's actually 4 over there, and I'll come back to those deposits in a moment with the next video. But I've built, so let's just do a little bit of design in how we get the conveyor belts laid. That could have just been a platform, you know, a foundation going straight out there, but I've decided to split it up and do these concrete beams between it and bit of a tower in each one. I'm kind of happy with how it turned out. I kind of like the look of it. I've actually then able to put the power switching little switches, sort of the outlets on each of these across the beams here to sort of make it a little bit more neat. So yeah, I'm happy with how this turned out. And this is kind of the first time I've actually started to build like a functional building. So inside was all coal generation. The idea behind the building when I first started it was to have it sort of be self-sustainable. So the coal that's coming to there from there is obviously feeding these generators, along with the water that's coming in from underneath. So that was the idea behind it. It ended up being that in later save I actually get rid of this stuff or turn it off and disable it. Just didn't needed to be done. So this is just making power was all this was doing. You can see there's a pipe going up there. That is feeding water to the next level, because the next level is a series of refineries that are also combined with the oil. Once this autosave is kicked in, oil going up there. That all now leads us to the next level, which I don't actually have a way to get to easily, so I'm just going to have to dismantle one of these window panes and go back again. Frame rate hit again because I've got lighting in here, so I might just disable that and that should disable most of the lights. Yeah, that's not too bad. So we've got oil coming into there. That then feeds into these 3 refineries. This refinery is making polymer resin as its main output, along with this one, because that is required when combined with water to make fabric. We've got a single refinery. No, we don't. Where's the other refinery? Some of these are making. So that's making fabric. Just remind myself what I've set up here. Yeah, that's got an output. That's what I put that one. That one there is making rubber, which has this heavy oil residue output, sort of as a byproduct of that. Likewise with that one. Those 3 feed that residue into this guy, which then turns it into fuel, which then feeds these 2 fuel generators. Primarily did that just to save waste. You could have just that going into a sink of some description, but I've got it going into this couple of fuel generators. All that stuff, so the fabric, the rubber is fed up to the top level, which is where we go and join a manufacturer. So I'm just going to go right to the top. So I tried a bit of design, so it's sort of got this glass up right at the middle of on each side. It's then got this sloped roof, also with the glass maintaining that same pattern on either side, and this sort of shiny polished roof, which does look really neat with the reflecting. And inside here are 2 drain ports. That one on the right is bringing in batteries from my sort of battery factory I've got, which then feeds into that one and into a sink, into a battery thing, storage here. So I've got bunches of batteries in there, and ultimately into a awesome sink. That then feeds batteries into this one, because this one takes those gas filters that have been made by this guy at the rate of 7.5 a minute. That gets fed into that drain port and then shipped off to, drained off to the main factory where we were earlier. So this is taking a sink from out of overstocked rubber and coal from below. As again, I do tweak this a bit in a later save to make this a little bit more efficient. I think I end up ultimately going through and sinking excess fabric here, and also change this battery setup as well a bit, but in the later save I'll show you that. But yeah, this is sort of the first attempt at doing some sort of architecture. I'm happy with it. I'm going to maintain doing something like this going forward. So we've got, yeah, so it's concrete down there, metal up the side, metal roof, and this is a tarred roof to sort of do this. This is also just a, obviously, glass roof. This is a foundation, but it's been put as a material of coated concrete foundation. It gives that shiny look to it. And of course all the lighting inside of it is also something I've done as well. I do think it looks really neat though. I do like it with this sort of setup. So I'm going to maintain it. And then on the bottom we've got our two to pump into the generators and one to pump into that water that goes up to the very top. And again, maintaining this same sort of style with these pillars to hold things up. This was a switch that allowed me to disconnect and reconnect it to the main grid. I've ultimately now got rid of that because it just wasn't needed. So now it just runs off the main grid rather than being self-contained. So yeah, that was my sort of first attempt at that kind of thing. So I'm just going to jump back into here. Yeah, so that was that. As I said, I do think it looks really neat at night. So I'll just go back in here. Let's put this out. So put lighting across. So I've got one big light that comes out on each sort of in-point run, and then I've got lighting on each of the top of the towers, and then along the way. And I just think it looks kind of neat at night. And I think the building looks pretty decent as well. So I'm pretty happy with this. My sort of first attempt at doing some sort of proper sort of architectural design or sort of aesthetic that I want to keep maintaining. So I think I'll keep doing this a fair bit. And I have started to apply some of this stuff to the generator factory building. But I haven't yet decided what the roof is going to be on that one. So that's something we'll... Mortar sorts of marbles. So what we'll do now is we'll just go back to the main factory. And go back to the main factory. Yes, this is the, as I said, the rebuilt hub area of mine. So actually on top is the hub and the space elevator. So I don't actually need that for anything. There's no phase 5 components to build yet, and I don't think there will be in the update 6 either, based on what Coffee Stain Studios have been saying. So in the next video I'm going to jump into a further save, and I'll even expand on this, what I've done further from this, because a lot of this has gone, is the upshot of what I've done next. So let's jump into that save. Okay, so jump forward about 20 hours in the save here. And you can see that I've started to do a bit of dismantling, so we'll come back to this section in a moment. First thing I decided to, as you can see, a lot of the storages have now gone. So the circuit boards which were over there have gone. They're now fed into one of the storages on top of that central location. I'm trying to get rid of or bring down the number of screws I've got sitting in. There's nearly 1.5 million screws in that little lot of storages. So I've got them feeding into a storage container ultimately over there, but realistically they're all just being sunk because I've got so much excess. Ultimately those will be emptied and they'll be gone. Over here behind that building, that's a new building of a new storage tower I've built. In there we've got, at the moment I think we've just got cable and, I think it's cable. What's in there? Cable. Quite a few things in here at the moment. We've got so that's cable. We've got rods. We've got AOT limiters, high-speed connectors, an empty one, and quick wire all coming in here, because all that manufacturing for those items is essentially underneath here. And this arrangement here was to basically get rid of all the excess I had in these storages. So these storages are now empty. Likewise with that one, but all of the construction is still happening under here. So there's cadmium ore being mined there, smelted into these guys, making quick wire, which comes up to here and feeds into this series of things. So we've got circuit boards being made over here. We've got high-speed connectors being made here, which need quick wire and circuit boards, hence why that's been made there. And this little guy has just been making AL limiters. All of that needs quick wire, so that's what all the quick wire has basically been made to help build, and all the other quick wire goes to the manufacturer there of those filters I showed you earlier in this episode. So all this stuff is ultimately going to be gone. That's also emptied. Also, that's all empty. So yeah, just getting rid of all these storage containers on top of this stuff is also on the plans. What was being made just here, what's actually been stored in there, was iron rods, which was then being fed along this conveyor belt and going into a series of setups, production lines here for rotors, and then down there for modular frames. I've moved all of that production into this single tower now. These two resource nodes for iron ore were feeding into two sets of production here. So I had one set of 4 smelters there, which is feeding a set of 8 smelters. As you can see, I've dismantled some of it. Up here was another set of 4, feeding another set of 8, which has all been fed into feeding those couple of things I showed you just there. Over here was another set of rods. Sorry, it's another set of rotors being made, which had their own input of rods coming from here, which has been fed by, ultimately, by these 5 miners here. There's actually a 6th node here I'm not using, which I will be in the future. That was being fed into, what I had was, I might even jump in another shave at some point to show you what that was, but I had about it's close to 50 or 60 storage units that just had iron ingots in them, so that's all in here. That's now gone. Because the goal is that I'm going to try and have, keeping this sort of style in place, I'm going to try and build manufacturing storage towers. This is a self-contained. We've got iron ore coming up into here, fed into 8 smelters, then feeds up into here into 8 constructors, then up to another row of 8 constructors, and ultimately into storage up here, as well as feeding those modular frames down here. Is all coming from here, and the excess is being stored into these storage locations. Other than that, it sinks. When they get filled up, it'll start to sink. So it's a bit of an elaborate setup here. So I've got splitting coming up here and into a couple of smart splitters, but ultimately the idea is to have a little self-contained storage of iron rods in here, and then just belt them out of here through a conveyor bus to wherever they need to go. So this at the moment is just being fed out into those modular frames. But having said that, from iron ore, raw iron ore, which is, as I said, underneath here, all through into the bottom there, 6 iron ore deposits or nodes down there, from this we can build iron ingots from that. Iron ingots can then be led to build screws and iron plates. You can then combine iron plates with screws to make reinforced iron plates. Reinforced iron plates can be then mixed with screws to make modular frames. All of that starts from iron ore. So what I'm intending to try and do over the next couple of episodes, or the next build, is to basically feed essentially what can be up to a maximum of, because I've got, this is impure nodes. So with a Mark III miner overclocked to the maximum, the most we can get out of it is 300 out of each one of these nodes. We've got a total of 6. So we can feed into a series of smelters 1800 iron ore. And from that I plan to build several production towers that are making rotors, screws, iron rods, don't need iron rods anymore obviously, iron plates, reinforced plates and ultimately modular frames. And store them all in a tower setup similar to that one. That will eventually be a built-in container. It'll be very similar to that building I had for the gas filters. It'll be self-contained. It'll be in a little thing. And I'm then going to try and build into a bit of a skyscraper city, because over here where we've got the quick wire being made, which is from the ingots down here, I can do the same thing with that. We've got Caterham wire or Caterham ore there. Again, build that up into its own setup. We might even expand that to be a bit more than the 6 we've got there, which can feed into more generators, constructors, etc. And build into and have the same setup and have a tower of iron Caterham ingots going to Quickwire, storing Quickwire locally, and then setting it off to where it needs to go to make whatever it needs to make. And have a series of little construction towers like this one, and then have them self-contained, and then just have a platform that goes that you can run around them, and it'll be like a bit of a bit sort of skyscraper city kind of thing. So that's the big goal at the moment. That's going to take a fair bit of time. Plus also getting rid of all of this containing storage stuff. Eventually these may even go to some extent, or be shrunk down. I'm not too sure. Definitely going to change that around a fair bit. Part of the other structure, the other thing I need to quickly show you is, again, no change to be made to the generator stuff down there. I got a bit sidetracked from that. I discovered that I was fairly low on production of iron pipes and pipes and steel beams, steel pipes and steel beams. So that is now been this whole setup will be a bit redundant, because I've built a new steel pipe and steel beam construction setup, and we'll jump into that in a second. And I've got to do something similar to that concrete as well. So I've tweaked this as well. This is making screws for a particular setup. It goes into there and feeds along this manufacturing line to go into screws here. There was extra stuff here that just not being done anymore. So I've cleaned up a little bit of stuff around here. But let's go look at the structure. The structure for the steel pipes and beams. We might be able to see it from here because it's in a very similar, familiar spot. Just climb up here. So you can see there's the gas filter building, and if we keep going up, we'll just see the top of it there. And there is the steel beam, steel pipe construction tower. So let's just fall down here. I have a mod that protects me from fall damage. That would, in the vanilla game, would absolutely kill me. Let's go over there, and we'll go to steel beams, pipes, top floor. So again, as we're right, so I needed an absolute bucket load of coal to produce this. We've got at the very bottom here 2 rows of 24 each foundries, just making 100% speed, clock speed, steel ingots at 45 a minute. So there is 24 of those running at 40, creating 45 a minute each. That then feeds into a row of 5 rows of 9 constructors, and each of these is making either, as it says on the front there, that's making 2 rows of making pipes. That's 18 of them making pipes, and 27 of them are making steel beams. All 100%, not overclocked at all. and the maths just worked out for that one. If you feed in that amount of stuff from those down below, you're then making around 320 pipes a minute. I think it might be 320 beams a minute and 480 pipes a minute. There's a lot being made. Going to, yet again, local storage, set of 3 containers. So we've got 27,000 sitting in there. Likewise, beams there. Excess is sunk. And the ultimate part will be to have a drone take them back to the main factory, but that's not actually up and running yet. So we've actually got iron ore coming in from 2 different locations. So it turned out that this location, having oil over there, also had 3 pretty decent iron ore deposits just there. So they're all fed into this conveyor belt run, going into there, which is then split evenly between the various rows of 2 levels of foundries. They then feed up into here in a set of, so each set of is then divided into sets of 12 essentially. So there's 4 sets of 12. One set of 12 is feeding into one set of the row of beams there, another set of 12 feeding into that row of beams, another set rows into that set of row of 12 beams, and then one set of 12 actually feeds both of these sets of pipes, because the input requirement for this is 30 a minute, whereas for beams it's actually 60 a minute. So hence that's the way the balance works out. So I can have one set of 12 feeding 2 sets of 9 for beams, for pipes, sorry. And these are all running 100%. Not overclocked at all. So that's a good setup. That's going to give me a lot of excess at the moment. So all that coal comes from over there. There are 4 deposits over there which I'm using. And there is actually I needed 1 set of iron, and there was 1 more iron ore deposit there. So there's now, the only coal coming into here is the coal that goes into the top level. The generators have been essentially shut off. They don't do anything at the moment. So yeah, 4 rows of coal coming in there, and this iron ore belt coming to there, all coming to there. I haven't yet, haven't done the external cosmetics yet on this one. I would have maintained those tower constructions for the pillars. So I haven't yet come up with the external look for this one yet. But those 2 towers that I built to build these 2 sets of production lines sort of gave me the idea for doing a similar thing but at a slightly smaller scale in the main factory. So that's the sort of the build goal at the moment, is to do that. As a result of doing all of this changing, there are a couple of things I need to do with in terms of heat sinks. I'm going to go to my battery drone ports now. I've now got 2 battery drones ports. So we've got 2 drones for batteries. I've got batteries being made way down the bottom here. We'll jump in there in a second. So the idea is going to be that these drones will take batteries to other drone ports and then come back. And because of the way I've got it set up, you can actually have the drone leave off batteries, which are then fed into another port, which actually needs the battery. So if we go back to, where we were for the beams. So we've actually got the battery, the drone, the port. It comes in, drops off the batteries, which come out of outgoing. That then splits into here. That should be, yeah, it's about to land. So it's got, now it's going to do is it's going to land in. There's going to be a bunch of batteries incoming here. It'll then pick up what's in the outgoing and take it back to where it came from. So I never have batteries just sitting here sort of being sort of wasted. Not the best conveyor belt work there. So look, in a moment you'll see a bunch of stuff in. It'll just go right back into there. But this lot will disappear. And this lot will come in. It'll sort of flips it around. There it goes. So it's just picked up all the batteries that were sitting in here. It's unloaded what it already brought from the main drone, the main battery factory, and it's just basically putting it straight in again. It'll now go back, and it just rinses and repeats this. But I'm now not wasting batteries sitting here. I'm not having drone coming here and just land here and just sitting about, not able to land. Once this obviously starts to drone back to there, we'll actually have batteries being used. So I've tried to do that elsewhere now with all the other ones I've got doing that sort of setup. So that's going to happen in here as well, up in that top level, which I have now done. So go to the top of the gas filter building, and that's what's happening here. So same thing setting there. It lands with its new batteries. It goes into the actual drone port that needs them, and then the excess goes into the outgoing here, and then they go back. And it sort of cycles around. So it's a way that I can make batteries and not actually have them just sitting in drone ports going nowhere, nor having drones unable to land at drone ports, which it was doing before. So now we've got a backlog of batteries here, and the batteries are now going to there for storage. So ultimately, there's probably going to be a whole bunch of drone ports here, and that's it coming back. That's actually coming back from that. So this is now going to put more in here and pick up this stuff, and that just cycles around. So in a second, you'll see a bunch of incoming from that other drone port that it picked up, and then some of this will go as well. The drone can only take 9 stacks. So just unloaded 9 stacks, picked up 9 stacks, and now it's filling back up again. That's a heatsink one. That's not a battery port, and you can see that's now coming back into here in a massive amount. It's going to flow through there. Eventually, that'll then fill up, and then it'll start to load back into here. So we've also actually got that's also feeding batteries into. So all the batteries underneath, but it feeds into batteries, which goes along there, way along there, and feeds a drone port there. That's taking electromagnetic rods to the nuclear generators, and through there is a couple of drone ports taking uranium ore to that location as well. It's also taking fuel rods, electronic control rods to there, which get trained to the main factory as a part of the manufacturing of something, which now completely escapes what it's making. I have done a bit of a tweak down here. So I had an oversupply of assemblers making alkylate sheeting. So that's been cut back to suit the actual output that I was making. And the big change down to here was actually to retweak this whole setup to up this up to 40 batteries a minute. So making 120 batteries a minute. And as always, water and fluid pipe stuff is a bit of a problem in this game, because along here is a series of pipes feeding into 3 refineries which make all the aluminium solution that's needed for aluminium scrap, which is required for aluminium ingots, and for aluminium solution required for the batteries. And getting all the fluid balance right to feed those 3 refineries is a bit of a pain, and has a habit of just stopping and not working properly, and I don't really understand why. I think there might be an issue with fluids in this game. Not too sure. So you can see that requires that's actually working really well. That's really good. That's a bit that's a bit got a backlog because of the batteries not running 100%, which means it's not using the solution, especially that middle one. So alright, let's just dump that out, and that might get that more efficient, because these 3 have an excess of water, which I'm then combining into a single pipe run, which then feeds back into one of these pipe runs but goes down to there. So it's all a bit of a balancing act to get it right. And when I was playing this game a couple of days ago, this was all functioning really well. At the moment, it's okay. The water's flowing here really nicely. This is the problem. This flow in here would just stop, and I couldn't figure out for what it was. And it took me a lot of time. I rebuilt the pipe run. I rebuilt the these extractors. I put valves in place to stop sort of water going, only going that way, because the valve allows you to set a direction of water. As also, you can also limit it, but the main function from I'm using it for is to limit the direction. Because here we've got aluminium ingot production. That requires aluminium scrap. We've got 4 there and 3 there. This 3 here is just making the aluminium for these aluminium casings, which are required for the blenders above for the batteries. And this set of 4 foundries are just making ingots for the aluminium ingot requirement for the alkyd sheeting above. So yeah, so that's that. It seems to be going reasonably well at the moment, although we have got some those blenders aren't running 100%. That was running 100. That's got this output. That's a problem. We need to figure out what's causing that. And that one's okay as well. So not too bad. This required an increase, if I get onto the blender, of going up to 100 per blender for sulfuric acid. So I then had to reconstruct my sulfuric acid setup here. I only had one of these packages before. Now I've got 2 producing 300 collectively, 150 each, running 100%, because I had to build another set of. I had to build 3 refineries over here. Just land on this platform. So we've gone to 3 refineries, going up into there, fed by 1 miner, and fed by 1 water extractor, which is feeding both of those 3. And up here we've got 3 packages, which is packaging them all into packaged sulfuric acid, and then that dumps them into packaged sulfuric acid, takes it to the other end, and then that unpackages the other end and then brings the empty ones back, and it's just a loop system in place. So in theory we should never ever run out of empty canisters here. So that one's got this one's got 4, and that's got 10, so it's never going to run out basically, which is good. If I needed to, I could just pump an extra 100 or so empty canisters at the other end, and that will then sort of flow into the system and even itself out over time. That's basically a bit of an update on the build. So yeah, the next couple of video sessions are going to be probably cover a couple of different things. One's going to be that build I mentioned earlier, of the new iron ore base starting point factory line, building rotors, screws, iron plates, reinforced iron plates and modular frames, and then ultimately we might end up getting rid of this tower here and getting rid of this setup over here. But again, start going down the path of, I think, building little production line towers. That one's got aluminium copper going into wire and copper sheets, so again that could be split up into 2 different towers. Bit of local storage, and then also being fed into or fed out to what it needs to feed into down the line here. And then sort of make this into maybe a little kind of a pseudo city in a way, with these production towers, and just have towers of production. Maybe going to a big central one. I don't know yet. As I said, that was a first design at a central storage unit. I'm not that unhappy with it, but I think with my new sort of design philosophy, for the want of a better term, I might end up scrapping it and doing something different. But only time will tell us how I end up going down this path. So yeah, that's it for episode 3. Hopefully episodes 4 and 5 will cover a lot of what I just talked about and that whole changeover, and ultimately might get back to finishing the generator build and getting the internal lights and the roof on it as well. Thanks for listening and watching. Bye.